So Krystal Ball interviewed Andrew Yang discussing his new Forward book and his new third party called the Forward Party. I found this interesting because my original perception of it was it's just a third party. Turns out it's a little different from that, maybe, although he does appear to be slightly contradicting himself here. Take a look and then we'll discuss.
So if someone is for these 6 pillars and they're running as a Democrat in a primary or running as a Republican in a primary, let's get behind them. You don't need to run as Forward Party. We're going to be a group that just supports people who are for these principles. And simultaneously, we will be activating voters to pass these ballot initiatives to try and implement open primaries and ranked choice voting in states around the country.
Gotcha. So this sounds a little bit like the DSA model in that they'll back candidates who are running on the Democratic Party line. They also do field candidates who run, outright as DSA candidates, but they've focused electorally and had some success that way in backing candidates who are running as Democrats but support their shared values. Is that kind of like the realm of what you're thinking in?
Yes, because again, we're smart and impact driven, and in a lot of these locations, it is impossible to run as anything other than a Democrat and Republican. So we're going to support people who are aligned, regardless of what letters next to their name. Like, this is not working for Democrats, independents, Republicans. It's driving us all mad. And so in the face of that madness, what is a real answer? What is a real solution? And I believe that the real solution is changing the duopoly. The duopoly does not make any sense on its face. There's nothing about 2 parties in the Constitution. It's holding us back in so many ways. 57% of Americans want a third party. 60% think both sides are out of touch. So if a majority of Americans are at that point, why can we not change it? And it's because we've been told we cannot change it. like that's really the answer to it. So then you have to say, okay, hey, if enough of us get together, can we change it? Well, let's do that. Let's start the Forward Party, inclusive of everyone of every alignment. Don't need to change your party registration. And let's change the incentives so that we'll have real hope. This is my best shot at something I can feel great about.
So this is really interesting to me, and I'm kind of mixed on it, and I don't know exactly what he means here because I do think there's a little bit of a contradiction. So let me run through it. So at the beginning there, he says, listen, with my Forward Party, you can run as a Democrat or a Republican and still be part of the Forward Party. And so then Krystal accurately points out, okay, so you're doing basically the DSA model, because what the DSA does is they will endorse candidates, and oftentimes, if not most of the time, all the time? I actually don't know, but I think it's just most of the time they run Democratic Socialists in the Democratic Party. Like, they'll endorse a Democratic candidate who is a Democratic Socialist. Now, why do they do this? They don't do this because they're corrupt or they're sellouts or whatever. They do it because it's the only way to fucking win. Like, we have the Green Party. None of them are in Congress. None of them are in the House of Representatives. None of them are in the Senate. None of them ever made it to the White House. Maybe there's a handful, even at the local level around the country. We have the Libertarian Party. None of them are in the House of Representatives. None of them are in the Senate. None of them have been president. Maybe there's a handful at the state and local level. Like, there's just tremendous amounts of evidence that you just can't win that way. So if you want to be serious about gaining power and changing stuff, you're basically forced to do the DSA model, which is, we'll endorse you as a Democratic Socialist, but you're running in the Democratic Party, so you actually have a fucking chance to win. So on the one hand, he says, like, let's do the DSA model because we're practical and we're pragmatic, and that's the only way to do it. And the comparison I always make for people is, we have Coke and Pepsi, and yeah, RC Cola can say we're going to overtake them, but they're not going to fucking overtake them. So now we might not like that. You and I might prefer RC Cola. We might prefer the Green Party to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, but doesn't mean it's even possible for them to actually overcome them, because you have to be realistic and pragmatic and just evaluate evidence effectively. So on the one hand, he says, I'm not an idiot. Of course I'm going to do the DSA model. But then that last part you saw there was from later on in the interview where he kind of says the opposite. He says, well, we need to break the duopoly. You're going to break the duopoly by running people from within the Democratic Party and the Republican Party? That's not breaking the duopoly. That's the opposite of it. Now, again, the whole break the duopoly thing sounds great in theory. I support it in theory. In reality, I don't think it's fucking possible, and we don't have the time to break the duopoly to actually address the problems that we need to fucking address. So which is it? Is it break the duopoly? 57% of Americans want a third party, so we got to deliver on the third party. Yeah, 57% of Americans want a third party. I'm included in that. But also, like, almost nobody votes third party. I vote third party because I'm actually, I will actually vote for the candidate, whoever I think is the best candidate in each election, because that's how I roll. But I don't do it with fucking rose-colored glasses on, where I pretend like when I voted for Jill Stein, yeah, she has a chance to win. Like, what am I, a fucking idiot? Of course I know she doesn't have a chance to win. So, there is a contradiction there. He's saying, let's be practical, let's be pragmatic, let's get people elected in the Democratic Party who are endorsed by the Forward Party who are for these things I care about deeply. And on the other hand, he's like, well, no, break the duopoly and let's have a third party that's transformative. You don't see that contradiction, Andrew? You don't see that contradiction? So, now, by the way, I will say, even though I'm being critical at this moment, I will say, if he actually means the first thing, then I don't think this is crazy. I actually like the idea, and I think a lot of people should do a lot more of it. So, let me give you, these are the planks. We talked about this before, but I'll give it to you again. His planks are, number one, ranked choice voting and open primaries. So you need to support ranked choice voting and open primaries to get the endorsement of the Forward Party. Then he says, number two, fact-based governance. That really doesn't mean anything because everybody thinks they're dealing in facts, even if they're not. Number three, human-centered capitalism. That's sort of, I feel like that's a low bar. If you're going to push for human-centered capitalism, you ain't going to get anywhere near it. So, and also, it's just, that's another, seems like almost a contradiction in terms, and Krystal points that out at one point in the interview. Number four, effective in modern government. Again, that doesn't really mean anything, Andrew. Because people have different interpretations and perceptions of what that is and what that entails and what policies would be in alignment with that. Number five, UBI. I support that one. Number six, grace and tolerance. Again, I don't really know what that means. It's like very vague and general. So of the 6 planks, I only really support 2. Ranked choice voting and open primaries, which is the first plank, and UBI, which is the 5th plank. So, but if his goal is, let's put aside the stuff that's meaningless and it doesn't really mean anything. Just put that aside for a second here. If Andrew Yang says the Forward Party is going to endorse candidates who support UBI and ranked choice voting and open primaries, I'd say, oh, cool, that's great. So then when the Forward Party endorses somebody, yeah, I would be more likely to take a look at that candidate and be like, oh, so at least I know this person is for ranked choice voting and open primaries and UBI. And that does give them a leg up on other candidates in my mind because those are policies I support. And that would be a flag of like, here's one you can support. I guess my only point is everybody needs to not lie to themselves that, you know, somebody running as a Democrat with those policy beliefs would have a much better chance to win than somebody running in a literal Forward Party, which was created 2.5 seconds ago, has next to zero name recognition, and won't get crack more than 5% anywhere in the country. So that's my only point. Now, a lot of people don't like when you point that out. I don't fucking care. Because what I'm saying is just a fact. That's just a fact. Again, I don't know how to stress this enough. If you, and this is why the other part of what Andrew Yang is doing here, that's actually good. If you want to do the third party route, you cannot put the cart before the horse. So what I mean by that is you have to first do ranked choice voting and open primaries. Because that's the only way you can then turn around and say to people, there's no such thing as a wasted vote. There's no such thing as the spoiler effect. We have ranked choice voting. We have open primaries. You could just vote for whoever you want. And so then you have a list. And maybe, just maybe, when we get to that point, well, then you can vote number 1 candidate, Green Party candidate. Number 2, Democrat. Number 3, this other Democrat. Number 4, whatever, fill in the blank with whatever various party you might support. So, but what I see is a lot of people in the third party movement, they're not first and foremost pushing for the necessary reform, ranked choice voting and open primaries, which is what you absolutely have to do before you go all in on a third party approach. Because guess what? People have been trying this in the modern era for decades, and nobody got fucking anywhere because we don't have ranked choice voting. So what that means is, and we don't have open primaries. So what that means is, it is effectively rigged against these parties, and you're just making your life harder by trying to do it without unrigging it first. It's like somebody breaks both your legs and says, run the marathon, and you're like, okay, I'm going to run the marathon. Well, get your fucking legs fixed first and then run the marathon. What are you, dense? You're not going to win running with 2 broken legs. Duh. So Andrew Yang is correct in this approach. So if you do the ranked choice voting in the open primaries, if we actually get that implemented in places, and he's talking about direct ballot initiatives and things of that nature too, well then it's not as much of self-disenfranchisement anymore to be part of a real third party. You see what I'm saying? So I'll end on that note because that's the positive note, that he's somebody who's trying this third party approach, who at least is not putting the cart before the horse. He's not saying, here's all the amazing policies I'm for, but I'm not going to first push for ranked choice voting in open primaries, which is the only way that I even have a snowball's chance in hell to win. So there you have it. I take my position on this forward party was, this is silly and ridiculous. And now I have shifted my position to, I'm just agnostic on it. Namely because it's just a good way to know which candidates support ranked choice voting, open primaries, and UBI. And that's helpful. That's definitely helpful. But the reason I just say I'm agnostic and not supportive is because he sort of contradicts himself as to what is really going on here. Is it the DSA approach, which is reasonable? Or is it this, I'm just going to try to break the duopoly and get a third party which has like less than a 1% chance of victory, and I will self-disenfranchise and waste my time? I hope it's the former, and if it is the former, I really have no problem with it. And if anything, it'll be sort of helpful to know who supports these policies, which I also support.